Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Connection, week 163. We are kind of in the middle, right? Like, on the one hand, it is a new year, although Coffee and Connection has always started its season after Sukkot, because that's when Coffee and Connection first got started. So here we are in our we have a few this year where we get to talk in between the new year and when we start our next season. And it really is exciting to kind of look at maybe some of the things that may have come up over the holidays, over Rosh Hashanah, and as we get ready for Yom Kippur as well. Hold on a second. I just saw that. Okay. So, okay. So, one thing that has really been a very interesting topic that has come up a lot. I hear it a lot in women's questions. I've noticed it a lot in my mastery program. It's something that we even had a whole deep dive into over the last few weeks in a retreat that we did. And I want to, and that's really like I was saying in the email, that topic of like, how do we handle it when we're shown, like we come up against something where we may have made a mistake or where someone's upset at us or something we might have done wrong. Now, I want to even take a step back and acknowledge that these time periods, right, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the whole idea of looking at ourselves and looking at our relationship with Hashem, it's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable in so many ways. I mean, Rosh Hashanah, and we really got a taste of this year in Israel especially. It's really helping, I know, ground me in like what tefillah actually is, what it means to have a relationship with Hashem, the whole concept of like just that relationship with Hashem, of that recognition that like we are totally vulnerable in this world. We are like it's all, we don't control anything. I making Hashem my king is really about stepping back and saying, Hashem, I may think I'm in control of things in this world, but really, you are the one who is in control. You are in control. You are the king. You are the one who rules this world. You are the one who determines what happens. And that is a very vulnerable thing. It's very vulnerable to, and I was actually over Rosh Hashanah heard our Rebbe talk about how like that's that like Deen, that's Rosh Hashanah is all about Deen, and that actually that's a very vulnerable thing to experience, right? We think of like Deen. Actually, no, it was the opposite. Yom Kippur is about Deen, and Rosh Hashanah. No, what was it? No, Rosh Hashanah is Deen, right? It's judgment, and that actually can be very difficult. No, what was it? It was the opposite. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Hadin is Yom Kippur, right? I'm trying. It was like he said it as like Yom Kippur is easy. Well, we're going to talk about how Yom Kippur can be hard. Yom Kippur can be easy because it's all about like, okay, I can see the things I've done wrong, the things I want to fix. Oh, and that's that's Rachamim, Hashem's Rachamim. But the fact of Hashem's Deen, Yom Adin, Rosh Hashanah, right? The fact of Hashem's Deen is actually as actually about being vulnerable to Hashem. We often think of the Yom Kippur as the more like we think of Yom Kippur as the more vulnerable thing. Like, here I am standing from Hashem with all of these things that I've done wrong. Hashem, please forgive me. But he was saying that Rosh Hashanah actually has inherent in it a much even deeper level of vulnerability because on Yom Kippur, we could say, well, I'm going to fix this to have a closer relationship with Hashem. I'm going to fix that to have a better relationship with Hashem. I'm going to do this so that I bring Hashem into my life more. Rosh Hashanah is about taking that step back and realizing it is all you, Hashem. It is not me. It is all you. And that is incredibly vulnerable. And that's the connection. And we know that connection happens through vulnerability. So it's very vulnerable to recognize, wow, it's all you, Hashem. It's all you. It's not it's like, there's nothing, I'm not in control. Right. And we felt, over a 3-day Yontif, knowing that like so much was going on and they're fighting in the north and they're fighting in the south. And we had no idea what was happening. No idea. Is like we really felt that vulnerability of like, it's it's not in our hands. It's not in our control. And that's really the reality of every day, right? We do what we can and we do our hishtadlut, and we know that ultimately that's what it means to make Hashem my king, that it's all in his hands. Now, Yom Kippur also has its aspect of vulnerability because I have to be real about the things where I'm struggling, the things about me where I'm not up to par, where I'm not where I could be, right? Where my own character flaws are holding me back from being the woman I want to be, having the relationship I want to have. And a lot of times, right, if you relate to this, that's why you're here, right? If you relate to this idea that coming up against our character flaws, coming up against the things that we haven't done right, coming up against things that we may have done wrong, we can find very challenging to acknowledge, very challenging to be real with. And I hear this from women all the time where even a character flaw that we acknowledge, like maybe you like send me a message like, my gosh, everything's such a mess, I can't seem to get it together today, and everything's flying, and then my husband walks in and he says it's such a mess in here, and I get so upset, I'm so hurt, right? And it's always like something to get interested about, not a make wrong, just something to be interested about. What is it about your husband saying it's a mess that's so painful when you yourself said it's a mess? But there is this reality that it's very hard. It becomes very challenging to to reflect on or to hear about things about us that are not what we might think of as ideal, right? Or we'll learn something new. Sometimes a woman will share with me a challenge, this is what happened with me and my husband, or this is what happened with me and my kid, or this is what I'm feeling. I'm afraid about something. I'm worried. I'm making something me. I'm very upset about something. And sometimes I find that when I share with a woman, well, how about like realizing, well, maybe you're making it mean something that, and just helping her see something that maybe in her blind spot, or teaching her a skill that she may not have known before, that that can be an experience that actually can have her shut down, right? Because what happens is that we can be very bothered by the thought that we didn't do something quote unquote right? The knowledge of, oh my gosh, I did that wrong, can actually be triggering. But here's the thing, life, right? If life is about growth, we've been talking about that for the last few weeks, as life is about growth, well, growth then is all about acknowledging that what I knew yesterday, I now know something new today, right? And I'm going to know something tomorrow that I don't know today. And the only way we're going to grow is if we continue to learn. And the only way we can learn is if we can acknowledge that there was something I didn't know yesterday that I now know today. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Right? If I'm learning, if I'm growing, it means that today I'm somewhere that I wasn't yesterday or a year ago or a minute ago. And it's important to acknowledge what it is about that that upsets us or triggers us. And this, it's very normal if it does trigger you. I'm telling you, this is something that I have been noticing so much with women that I'm working with, and it's like in the air where people find it very difficult to acknowledge or to hear or to be able to process something that I can't believe I didn't know that, or how could you, like, even the pain of something being pointed out to us. And it's really important to work through this because, as I was saying, that is going to be what's going to get in the way of us actually being able to grow, right? And if we can't, one of my favorite quotes from Rav Yitzhak Berkowitz is that in Judaism, we recognize our shortcomings to overcome them, right? We don't recognize our shortcomings to excuse them. We recognize our shortcomings to overcome them. But if I can't recognize my shortcomings, if that's too painful, then how will I overcome them and grow and become a stronger a stronger woman? How will I work on myself? How will I have that growth process if I can't acknowledge my shortcomings? And I think that what often if we ask ourselves what is it that's actually so painful about acknowledging our shortcomings? What is it about making a mistake that or having our mistakes pointed out to us that makes us feel like we have to like either shut down like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so horrible. What's wrong with me?" or get angry, "How could you say that? That's like I can't believe you would do that." Or that that feels hurt or that feels like, "Oh no, I have to be perfect, right? I better fix this. Oh my gosh, tomorrow I'm going to get it perfectly right." Well, I just kind of said it. I think the thing that really the for most of us the underlying belief that gets in the way of being able to recognize our shortcomings to overcome them is a belief that we should be perfect. And I know you might not think like, "No, I don't think I need to be perfect," kinda. Most women don't think I need to be perfect, but we think that we need to be like the better version of ourselves already now, right? That and we should be seen perfectly and we should be loved for exactly what we are and we should be perfect as we are. And that ourselves like to have something pointed out to us means that I didn't get it perfect. And I really invite us to acknowledge how much there really is ingrained in it. It's fascinating how we can see it in so many ways. It's not just from Instagram and TikTok because I'm telling you it exists in kids who are not even watching Instagram. We see it even in, I'm going to even say, cultural, like Jewish, not Sfarim, like not Jewish sources. I mean, like, like Jews perpetuating this in the Jewish magazines and even in classes that are given this almost like belief that we need to be perfect. We should get it perfect, and not just we should be perfect, but other people should be perfect. Everyone should know exactly what to say and when to say it. And I really invite you to check in with yourself about that. Like when you have something brought to your attention that there's something you did that bothered someone, right? Your husband says he doesn't like food that you made, or your someone says, you really shouldn't have said something that you said, or maybe you learned something that like you didn't know was wrong, and then you find out, oh my gosh, like I've been davening this way, or I've been making my food that way, or I've been thinking this was the best way to raise my child. By the way, it might be that in the that was right for you then, and now you're learning something new that will work better for you now. But if those kind of thoughts trigger something in you that makes you feel like a shame that has you either shut down or feel like you need to be perfect or get angry, right? Which are ways that we respond to being triggered. Then I invite you to really get curious if there's something like what the thought is that has you respond in that way. That has you respond in a way where you're shutting down or getting angry or telling yourself, I have to get it perfectly. And if it's at all connected to the thought of, I should have known, I shouldn't have made such a mistake. I shouldn't have messed up. I should have known. I shouldn't have, like, what's wrong with me? All of that is the same idea of as if I should have already been perfect, right? Rather than what we're talking about, which is a life of growth, is always going to be, I know more now than I knew yesterday or a year ago or 10 years ago. And here's the thing, let's be real. If we were supposed to be perfect, there would not be a concept of Yom Kippur every year. The whole concept of Yom Kippur is there to say, yes, you're going to mess up over the year. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to struggle. You're going to do things that are going to affect you spiritually. That's going to happen. Don't assume it's not going to happen. Hashem says it's going to happen. He actually has built into the system a way to reset And one of the ways that we reset is that we spend the day acknowledging, we actually spend 40 days acknowledging those shortcomings that are getting in the way and creating these mistakes, right? Not as a, you're a horrible person. How could you do that? If it was, you're a horrible person, why would you do that? Then why would Yom Kippur be considered one of the happiest days of the year? Right? Why would this be something that Hashem gives us be'ahava, with love? Right? We don't say it in Kiddush on Yom Kippur, but we say it in the Shemona Esrei, I believe, right? We say that Hashem gives it us with love. Why? Because He knows we are human, and we are not meant to be angels who get everything perfectly. We're humans, and what makes us humans is that we grow. And growth is about, I know something today that I didn't know yesterday. So when we acknowledge that something, we learn something new, we acknowledge a mistake that we made, we acknowledge a shortcoming, there's a difference between feeling triggered and shamed and shutting down and feeling like, I'm horrible, or I have to get defensive, or I better be perfect. There's a difference between that and acknowledging, oh, right? This is getting in the way, or, oh, I didn't know that. Let me acknowledge how that's been affecting me. It becomes something productive. In the same way in our relationships, right? Here's one thing that I found so powerful is if, let's say, when to acknowledge that when someone's upset with you, when someone's upset at something you did, it may not even be so much about you, first of all, as it is about them. Something is upsetting them. That's even how we say it. Something is upsetting them. First and foremost, we want to get to understand what is upsetting you. It's about that other person, right? Let's talk about relationships for a moment. If your husband is upset about something that you did even, it's much more about him than it is about you. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong. First and foremost, you get to look and see, let me get to understand you. I get to understand you. I get to learn about you and see what you like, what you don't like, what upsets you, what triggers you. Let me give you empathy and understanding. Let me learn about you. That's connection. And then you can also look to see, okay, is there something I can learn from this? Because if we look at our lives as a series of growth, then learning something, recognizing something that I may have done wrong, no longer has to be something painful. I mean, it can be painful in the fact that, like, we don't want to have hurt someone or we don't want to have made a mistake, but we also don't have to have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm horrible, or I'm a mess, or this person's never going to love me, or like like what, like, oh my gosh, like I totally messed up. We're all going to make mistakes. We're not meant to be perfect. That is built into the reality of the world. It's why Hashem gave us Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, so that we can, as I think we talked about last year, like get ready to hang, like be in the sukkah with Him, right? Like we get to like really work on our relationship with Him. We get to work on ourselves, so we get to feel connected to Him and close to Him. And so when something comes up and we feel like we acknowledge, oh, I must have, like, we're standing there doing the al chetz, like I hurt, I did this and I do that, and I have this character flaw and I have that character flaw. Let's you We can use it as an opportunity to feel, and this is a really cool thing about Yom Kippur, like what we're doing in Slichot, and on Yom Kippur we say a lot of Slichot. It's all about a desire to work on these challenges. It's not even like we're gonna walk out of Yom Kippur perfect. Yom Kippur is not, "Okay, now I'm perfect." Like, Hashem already knows you need Yom Kippur again next year, but what do we do as soon as Yom Kippur is over? Slach lanu, Avi, right? Like, we say Slach lanu 2 seconds later. Why? Because we know we're going to make mistakes again. We're human. That's how we're going to learn. But we're only going to get to have that growth process if we allow growth to happen, if we allow ourselves to acknowledge those shortcomings, to acknowledge what we don't know, and then to make the choice to work on it, to learn, to move forward from it. Is this resonating with all? Tell me what you're getting for yourself from this. Chat has been very, very quiet tonight. Maybe this is very triggering for everyone. I can imagine sometimes it is, right? This concept of acknowledging something we may have done wrong, because we do want to defend ourselves. And that's where we want it when we feel defensive, or when we feel shame, or when we feel anger, which are all how we respond to being triggered, right? Either one or all of them. That's when it's powerful to acknowledge, oh, what am I making it mean? What's triggering me here? And how can I use this as a recognition of something that I can grow from, so that I am learning? I know I'm somewhere today that I wasn't yesterday, right? That's the power of growth. We get to be somewhere today. We get to be somewhere tomorrow that we weren't today, where we weren't yesterday. And that can only happen through acknowledging what we can do better, right? And again, that means we get to work through this limiting belief. Like, it is like the biggest falsehood in the world that we need to be perfect, right? As if we should be perfect, when really we are vulnerable human beings. We are so vulnerable. We are just real people who struggle, and the struggles are what make us human and allow us to grow, right? If we didn't struggle, if we weren't vulnerable, there'd be no growth, right? There'd be no growth, and connection is built through that vulnerability, and through that ability to realize, wow, I'm not perfect. And you know what? Hashem loves me anyways. You know what? I'm here on Yom Kippur not because I should be perfect and now I have to feel so bad that I'm not perfect. I'm here on Yom Kippur because I'm not perfect, and Hashem is giving me a day to really focus on how what's getting in my way and how I want to grow over the coming year. And anytime those thoughts come up for us, where someone sees something in us, or we see something in ourselves, someone points something out to us and we feel ourselves getting triggered. It's something I go into so deeply in the Absolutely Feminine program, all the different ways that we react when we feel triggered and how to deal with that so that it doesn't get in the way. When we notice that we're getting triggered, we can acknowledge what we're making it mean, so that then we can actually allow those to be moments of connection, right? Because if I acknowledge that something that I did upset someone, or I did something and I thought I was doing the right thing and it turns out that it wasn't the right thing, right? Or it wasn't the right thing in this situation. That's how I can keep learning and growing, and that's going to allow me to connect to myself, to connect to Hashem, and even connect to the other person when I say, "Wow, thank you," or I see that this really upsets you, and now I get to learn about you and I get to learn about myself, and we get to move forward, right? So here I'm getting some, yes, I love this. It's so encouraging. Yes. Okay, thank you for your feedback. And I really want to take this opportunity to wish you all a Gemar Chatima Tova. Take this opportunity to apologize if I ever hurt any of you, if there's anything I said that triggered you or upset you, or that made you feel, if I said the wrong thing, maybe you reached out with a question and I didn't get to respond to you, or I didn't say something that was what you were looking for. It didn't help you the way that you were hoping it would. I apologize for, in any way that I may have hurt anyone or not shown up in the way that you needed. And I just want to just daven for all of us, and to wish all of us a good, sweet year, a year where we allow ourselves to acknowledge our vulnerability, so that we can feel connected to Hashem, we can feel connected to others around us, we can let go of those beliefs and those fears that are holding us back, and really be able to grow and move forward as a community, as individuals, in our relationships, in our avodas Hashem. right? And so that we can, that's really how we get to feel Hashem's love. There's no feeling of Hashem's love like when we know Hashem forgives us on Yom Kippur, even though we're gonna mess up again. And he says, and I forgive you anyways. Like it doesn't make any sense. That's what Yonah is all about, right? Yonah's like, why would you forgive these people? And Hashem's like, that's what I do. That's what I do. And we get to feel that love of Hashem. And we get to do that in our relationships too. We get to acknowledge that we're not perfect and we get to be loved even though we're not perfect. And our husbands aren't perfect and we get to love them anyways. And our children aren't perfect, right? And we love them anyways. And we're not perfect parents and they love us as well. So, like, we don't have to be perfect to be worthy. We don't have to be perfect to be loved. We don't have to be perfect to be enough. What we do get to do, what is upon us to do, is to grow. And the only way we're going to grow and move forward in life is if we allow ourselves to acknowledge and learn from the mistakes that we make, be okay with that, so that we can move forward and grow and deepen our relationships and deepen our skills and deepen ourselves, bring out more and more of who we are. And may we have a year where we really feel like we can do that in a sweet way. And I look forward to continuing to help you and support you all on this journey. Thank you all very much for being here. I look forward to seeing you next week. You have an easy and meaningful fast, a very Yom Kippur where you really feel held and supported and where you really feel connected, whether you're home or you're in shul, wherever you are, to allow yourself to really feel the connection that we get to have on this very, very special day. So once again, I wish you all a Gemar Chatzima Tova, Shana Tova Umetuka. And until next time, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.